Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give our pianists Rob Coe and Nate Gehring a round of applause. Thank you. We will hear from them a little later on. Thank you, gentlemen. And let me just talk for a moment about these pianos. We're very proud of both of them. This is the Boston made by Steinway, a piano that came through the theater construction, and a great piano. And then this was a surprise piano that was donated to the school, and came from Oregon. My wife's aunt, Betty Gifford, had this and donated that. And so we made this trip down, and we moved a grand piano back to Deer Park. And so it's this Yamaha, two great pianos. Well, welcome to this portion, and you got things kicked off in the gymnasium. It's a beautiful facility, and now we'd like to show off the Performing Arts Center. The Kenneth M Fisher Performing Arts Center. How many saw the lettering and such that was way above the door as you came in? Looked nice, didn't it? And if you didn't see that, take a look at it on your way out. It's a great place for the community. We're excited. It's been a long time coming. A lot of people have thought about just this kind of facility for years. And it says a lot about the Deer Park, Loon Lake areas that here it is. And in fact, right now I'd like to mention that the first theater performance is going to be coming up. It's going to be A Midsummer Night's Dream, presented 5 nights. It'll be November 12th, 13th, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Curtain time is at 7 o'clock. That'll be in November. Show runs approximately 2 hours with an intermission. The cost is $3 for students and $5 for adults. And you will want to come and see that. That will be the first theatrical performance that will be happening here. So that will be great. Ken Fisher touched a lot of lives. Many of you here knew him, were a student of his, or knew him as a friend. And it's after him that we dedicate this Performing Arts Center. But what you have to know is that really we'd also like to thank Nancy Fisher, Rob Fisher, and family for putting up with the rest of us who got to benefit from all that time that we spent with Ken Fisher. We'd like to thank them for sharing Ken with us. So let's give Ken a hand. The other person I would like to thank is a gentleman by the name of Gordon Grove. Gordon Grove and I go back to elementary school, and we were in the band with Ken Fisher. And he and I were the ones who said to ourselves, we had better interview Ken, this was in the early 2000s, and get him to tell the story of how he put this whole program together in the early 60s through the 90s. And we did, and we sat down with that, and we've been very thankful ever since. And tonight, those of you who were at Ken's memorial remember the video, and we've taken that and retuned that a little bit. In fact, you'll like this. Gordon Grove is singing a special song in this rendition, and it's great. It's the part that kicks in during the Rose Parade. And even my production students, just the other morning, we drugged them out to the parking lot, and we shot some footage, and you'll be able to figure out where that goes to. It's a great thing. And I would just mention this. Some of you have asked if the DVDs are still available of the Ken Fisher interview, and they are. Afterwards, just Kathy Fish will be out in the comments, and you can see her, and she has those DVDs. Let's spend a few moments with Ken Fisher.
All right, my first teaching job was at Mackay, Idaho, and I never would have left Mackay because I loved it. It was a ranching community. We'd bought horses and rode all over the country, but unfortunately they didn't pay enough. So I told Nance if she could find me a job, then I would move. And so she got connected with Deer Park somehow, I don't even remember. So anyway, we came up here, I flew up, interviewed with Lee Pangle. He brought me in this band room and talked me through the changes that he wanted to see here. And I told him that I thought maybe I could do the job. And so we went out to see Vern Siegel. I got hired. So started in, and we had about 50 students in band. And of course, coming from a small school in Mackay where I had to use the 7th and 8th graders, having all high school kids was a big treat for me. And I know my first day that I had heard all kinds of problems that the band director before me had. So my opening statement was, it would be much easier for them to adjust to me than me try to adjust to all of them. And so if anybody couldn't live with that, then they didn't belong in the class, and about 5 guys got up and walked out. But they regretted that because the program, eat your heart out, guys. My first concert was a disappointment because nobody came. So I thought, well, if they won't come to me, I'll go to them. So once spring came, we started doing all of our marching downtown. That spring, we had a good turnout for our concert. And just luckily, I got a letter from the Pendleton Roundup people that wanted to know if we would be interested in coming down. And so I wrote back, and without even consulting parents or kids or the school, I told them yes, we would. So we went down there and put on quite a show, but the hot weather just about killed us. I had them dropping like flies in the parade. It was so hot. Yeah. That was from the morning parade because I had introduced the high steppers that year, and everybody loved to see those girls kick because there were only 6 of them because I hadn't a drill team yet. And so they kept yelling more, 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 and I'd blow that whistle and away we would go. And by the time we got almost to the end of the parade route, kids were just scared the heck out of me. And so Lucille Williams was the school, well, she was our nurse for band trips, so she started barking orders. Talk about a top sergeant. We rented motels and put the kids in ice baths in the motels. Because we had a halftime show to do that night at the Roundup. And we did, and that was also my first experience at chaperoning a group in a gym with boys and girls together, but it was a fun trip. But Monday morning when I came to school, Lee Pangle had cut out all these articles on heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and had them in my box waiting for me when I got there. WSU Band Day. By now they were psyching out that I could have fun, but I was also strict. And I don't know if I was strict because I was scared to death or not, I don't know. But anyway, I read them the riot act. If they missed that bus, they were going to be in big trouble. And who slept in that morning? Me. And so Lee Pangle called me on the phone and said, you know, you've got a couple of busload of kids up here. Are you planning on going anywhere today? And boy, I dashed out of bed, and I told him, I said, you start the buses down the road. And I grabbed my clothes, and Nance hopped in behind the drivers, and I shaved on the way down and dressed in the car and got down there, and we had a wonderful time at WSU Band Day. And I think we went probably for the next 10 years. I talked to Lee Pangle about starting a drill team and trying to get some school twirlers, and he was a little reluctant, and he wasn't so sure what I really had in mind when I talked to him about it. So I had some Mackay kids come up for a month during the summer, and we put a performance on for Lee Pangle and his wife and Vern Siegel, and so they came down to the Luth Hole place, and Nance had all the punch and cookies, and that sold the program to Lee. That next year I started with the drill team, And so we met 3 days a week out in the hall after school. And so our practice time was after school, right there around the Stag Head. We couldn't march on it. And then Friday he let me in on the gym because that was a game day for the basketball team and they didn't practice. So he let us have the gym. So we put did our blocking of the routine on Friday and performed that Friday night. So that worked out really well. And I've had some wonderful band parents, mothers who sewed uniforms for the gals. And so it worked out pretty good. And then pretty soon I knew where I wanted to go with this because the state of Utah is great for show dance teams. And down there at Mackay, I was so close to Utah that I got to see a lot of good teams. So I knew what I was going to borrow and steal. So I found in the long run, I think you could march a band down the street all playing a different note, but if you had good-looking girls out there kicking, they would say, that's the greatest band I've ever seen. You get some gals out there doing something, or you have maneuvers going on. Man, that just carries them right across. 64, Jean Ryder came and talked to me about getting new band uniforms. She didn't want to see these kids in those old uniforms anymore, so she asked me what I thought about having new uniforms. I said that was great. So I got a hold of a catalog and I chose the most expensive ones. And at that time they were about, I say $175 a piece. Back in that time, that was a very expensive uniform for the overlay, the jacket, and the coat, and they could be worn as a tuxedo too, and put the overlay on, and then the spats were additional. And I got 50 of them. And so for the Lilac Parade in 1965, we previewed those brand new uniforms. So I could only have 50 out there marching, and so the rest were sign carriers and did some flag stuff. Oh, everybody loved them. Yes, the money started to roll in then. Because for the first time, a lot of that stuff was impervious to me. It was just fun to do, and we did it and had a great time too, but it didn't really dawn on me how much pride the community seemed to have in it. And so it was always easy to raise money. So each year I think we bought something like 10 or 12 each year till we got everybody outfitted. We're up to 70, and the Rose Bowl was the thrill of a lifetime. And I wrote them, and they called me that summer of '69 and wanted to know if we could come to the Rose Bowl. Yeah. And I accepted over the phone before I even got permission. God, should I be saying this?
Hey everybody, gather round and listen up. Mr. Fisher has some big news he wants to tell us about. We'll march the Tournament of Roses. Ken Fisher told us that July, New Year's Day, what you say, we can't let this pass us by. While raising money through December, we'll practice marching night and day. Miles and miles, like we'll see down in California. And we'll play Swanee. How they'll love us, wow, they'll love us when we play Swanee. The Deer Park marching stags will be seen round the world on CBS and NBC, our hometown, watching for us, cheering for us when we play Swanee. Hey, Pasadena, show us the way, and we'll play Swanee New Year's Day. Covering down, stepping downtown, thundering drums and horns a-blowing loud, all snappy and proud, pleasing the crowd, thanks to the old folks at home. And we'll play Swanee, how they'll love it when we play it through Pasadena. We'll long remember after we're gray when we played Swanee New Year's Day.
Everybody was absolutely thrilled. And boy, the parents really got behind that. They wrote to the governor and got us designated as the state representatives, which would give us an invitation to go outside the community to get funds. And I know we went to Spokane and did a lot of money raisers. But that was a lot of money to raise. I think the Rose Bowl was around $24,000 to get us down there.
Here comes the marching stag band from Deer Park High School, Deer Park, Washington. That's not a stag band, there's girls in it. There are 340 students in the high school, and 123 of these students are in the marching stag band. Let's listen now as these boys and girls make their debut today in the Tournament of Roses Parade.
And I know I've talked to alumni, and it seems like going to Philadelphia was secondary and going to the Rose Bowl. That seemed to be the big granddaddy of them all.
Rockets, here we come.
Yes.
I was doing some addition here. You say that they have a student body of 340. They have 123 in the band, so 217 are at home and very proud of this band.
Well, they may be more supportive than applauding.
Well, they may be. They may be.
Glad to know you're so quick at math, Bob.
I'm using a computer.
Oh, no, they're good kids. Do you know how much living room practice goes on to have that finished product?
Must have to have awfully high ceilings in their living room.
Yes, it was scuff marks all over them.
The years after the Rose Bowl, the membership sure stayed high. I remember going into the counselor's office and calling Philadelphia to find out how to get an invitation. Yeah, it must have been at least a year and a half before, because those mothers had to make those shirts and scarves for everybody and raise that money, so it might have even been 2 years. By then, I was probably getting antsy to get someplace big again. You seem like you have to do that to entice, keep the program going. I think we had more time to raise money than we did for the Rose Bowl. But having the Rose Bowl as a reference was a sure shoe-in for us. It rained toward the end of the parade, but it was a wonderful parade. It was a Western theme, so we had the gingham shirts and the girls, the drill team, were in the blue jumpers with the kind of pinafores with little scarves. And the people there, the spectators, were absolutely fantastic. And we came around, we had the big sign that says State of Washington out in front of us. Then we had behind that was the Deer Park signs. But we came around that avenue, and it seemed like the right side spectators were trying to outshout the people across the street. But we came around that corner, and they set up such a yell and cheering that it freaked us all out. I've never heard anything so loud in my life out in public like that. We journeyed up by Greyhounds up to Washington, D.C., and went to New York City, and went up to the Empire State Building, and I got to hear them all ooh and ah. That was a wonderful trip. Let's see, the spring of '78, I took the drill team to Los Angeles to the National Drill Team Festival competition, and they took 8th for a small team. That year, we sponsored the Miss Drill Team Washington here at the high school, and Laurel Turner, she won that, and she went down there and got in the top 10 and took first in speaking. So that was a thrill for us. I would say for 15 years, I was pretty much on top of the game with enrollment as far as having enough kids that I didn't want to handle anymore. You couldn't get through the grade book. And then it was a lot of responsibility because I took it seriously. But we sure had a lot of fun. And then toward the end, they started putting more things in the curriculum, and then of course computers came in big time. About the class of '88, I lost 28 sophomores. They came in and took freshman band, but I lost 28 of them sophomores. And so I had, that was about '88, and I had 5 more years before I retired. And so I just started to concentrate on jazz band. The greatest amount of joy that I got out of a musical presentation would be the trophy at the University of Idaho Jazz Festival. Because then you're judged by your peers, and you know you did something right. And you must remember, I'm not a music major. You can cut that out.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robko, class of 1970.
Well, that was quite a video, and I think we owe our thanks to Gordon Grove for countless hours of research and production to put that thing together, and it's a pretty amazing tribute to an amazing man. Mr. Ken Fisher loved his family, and he loved his horses, and you could tell from the video easily that he certainly loved his music programs and his school programs and loved working with the kids. But in his off time, what he really liked to do was play the piano, and he liked to play the piano a lot. And he would play piano in any kind of opportunity that he had. We have visions of him pushing the two blonde little spinet pianos that we had in the band room over at the old high school together, and he'd rope somebody into playing with him. And I can remember early mornings, I actually took piano lessons from him from the 5th grade through the 8th grade. And somehow I worked out that I took lessons before school, and then I would go to school with him. And so I'd be there. I'm sure it was 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It was probably really later, but for a kid my age at that time, it was really early. Playing piano, that's with Mr. Fisher. But when he got a chance to do that, he would love to jam with Laura Reynolds, or I think he talked Janice Snook into preparing some pieces for a talent show. And what a wonderful tribute it is tonight that we have 2 pianos on this new Kenneth M Fisher Performing Arts Center to tribute to him. Dan asked me to play some songs that he would enjoy or that he would play, so we started out with the blues boogie thing. And now we're going to play a patriotic medley, and at the end we're going to do Stephen Foster, and he certainly liked Stephen Foster because we played that song Swanee a million times. So anyway, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, Nate Gehring, Rob Coe. Ladies and gentlemen, Mick Miller, former superintendent and great friend of the Deer Park community.
Good evening again. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I have to be very honest with you. During construction, there were a number of times when I just come by and watch the construction going on, and I'd come into this theater and stand right here thinking about how wonderful it's going to be to have this building be dedicated for the kids in Deer Park. So it's such an honor to be here tonight, and just again, to echo what Becky said and what Eric said and what Joe said, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just as a wonderful, wonderful facility for the kids of this community. It is my pleasure to present that way. Want to look this way? Thank you. To present these plaques to Nancy and Rob Fisher, formally dedicating tonight the Kenneth M Fisher Performing Arts Center. So Nancy and Rob, would you please come forward? And family, please come forward. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Isn't this a wonderful facility? Pardon my notes, but I need to say thank you. And I want you to know how much this community did for Ken. And I don't want to forget it. Not supposed to do this. Ken would have really been humbled by this. He also would be a little embarrassed because he liked the attention to go to his students rather than to be on him. But he would have had a big smile on his face. The picture back here is pondering, but I'd like you to know that that picture was sketched by my granddaughter here and Ken's granddaughter in charcoal. Ken loved teaching in this community. He took a great interest in his students, and he was lucky because he got to really know his students. He had them in the 5th and 6th grade where he started them. Some he started in piano lessons before that. And then he got to have them through almost all the high school, except for when those ones dropped out. That's when they put in world history as a sophomore requirement. It affected the band program quite seriously. But he loved to talk to the students, and he enjoyed visiting with them at the Settlers Picnic and the Alumni Band Gathering each year. He would have enjoyed seeing all of you here tonight. But Ken would have gone on, he could have gone on to what some people would have called bigger and better places, but he chose to use his musical talent and his creative here in Deer Park. For 31 years, his students responded in their performances. The community supported in his dreams, and boy, did he dream big. More than I ever dreamed either. The new uniforms that were purchased in 1965, that was the first big project. And then it was on to the Rose Bowl and the Calgary Stampede. Many times they went there. The Philadelphia Bicentennial Parade, Expo in Vancouver, BC, Wenatchee Apple Blossom Festival, the Pendleton Roundup, yearly trips to the Pacific Northwest Drill Team competition in Boise, also to California more than once, and that meant Disneyland too. The Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival and WSU Band Day almost every year. This was besides the local commitments at concerts, athletic games, tournaments, music contests, and parades. Now, I mention all these things because it costs money. And I suppose that you as a superintendent wondered how in the world do you raise all that money and a school district can't afford it. It was up to this community. Parents and friends through the band boosters were continually challenged with yearly smorgasbords, carnivals, raffles, candy sales, anything they could think of to raise money, and you saw some of that in the video. And of course, many of the women sewed beautiful drill team uniforms. They did that every year for 30 years. They also made sure the band and the drill team uniforms were mended, cleaned, and cared for. Besides all of this, they were also asked to chaperone. Everyone did that so willingly from this community. So it was all of you, your parents, grandparents, and the community that gave their money, time, and the dedication that enabled Ken to have such a great teaching success in Deer Park. It wasn't just him. His programs were made possible through all of you. He often said that he was in the right place at the right time. So for him, I say thank you, and for the family, thank you. It was such a special time.
Let's give him one more round of applause. Nice job, ladies. So we hand out all these big plaques, and then in this case, we tried not to make the Fishers pack them around. We'll give them to them later. Right now, I'd like to introduce Joe Feist, the principal at Deer Park High School.
Thank you very much. It's great to see a packed house like this. I think Ken would have loved what we're doing here tonight. I have to tell you a couple quick stories. One, quickly, the only other time I've been on stage like this, I was in the 8th grade, and at that time, every kid in the class had to be involved in the school play. And my teacher let me go on the choir, but she said I had to lip sync. I could not actually sing, so I don't have a lot of stage time. This is kind of intimidating. I will tell you a quick story about Ken. I did not know him well. I know that he's touched a lot of people in the Deer Park community, and over the last 6 months as we've been finishing this theater, I've had people just out for a walk or run into them at Yokes, and they've just said, boy, I just think that's great that you guys named that theater after Ken. And I've heard story after story from so many people of the impact he had on so many young lives, and obviously all the way into their adult years. I will tell you that in 1984, I was a first-year head basketball coach at West Valley High School in Spokane, and the very first game I coached was here at Deer Park High School. And the girls' game had played before, and Deer Park, I love basketball, I love music, and Deer Park had this fantastic band that was playing like crazy at the end of the girls' game. And it was my first game as a coach, and I was just standing there just listening to this band saying, wow, how can you get 40 or 50 kids like that to come and put out that high quality of music at a high school basketball game? And my assistant coach came up and kind of grabbed me by the coattail, and he said, you have 12 young men in there that would really like some direction before tonight's game. But that's how I think impressive Ken was. And when I got here and I found out they were naming this theater after him, it all kind of came together. And so I, through the years coming here to watch basketball, got to at least enjoy his music. So thank you all very, very much for coming. Thank you to the Fisher family for supporting us. Like I said, the building will be open as long as you want. There's refreshments out there. I hope that you just stay and visit with old friends, and we hope to see a lot of you here at Deer Park High School through the years. So thank you very, very much.
So as you're leaving, I just asked these guys to come back and play. They didn't prepare too many songs, so I just said, well, just play it backwards. We'll be okay. So, but thank you again for coming.